Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is how people preach and how it needs to come from a different motivation. Sometimes when I'm irritated by things, I could preach very passionately about things, but it's not always the best motivation, because the best kind of preaching is the kind like if you were talking to a friend. Because when you're talking with a friend, you're all of a sudden going to be more considerate of this person, and you're trying to help them. You're trying to win them over. You're not trying to just say, here are the cold hard facts, take it or leave it, So an example of this in my own personal life is whenever I see rich people just wasting money, or just people in society just wasting money on luxuries, it frustrates me. It's just as frustrating as when you see the U.S. government sending $50 or $100 billion to some foreign country, and the money just disappears, and it's for a dumb cause anyway. That is frustrating. Okay, so do you see what I mean when I say, when you see that, it's called waste. It's called inefficiency. There are better ways to use those resources. And so that angers me. So in the same way, it angers me when I see wealthy people and them just being cold-hearted, having no empathy, turning a cold shoulder, wasting their resources on dumb things, making people labor for them for things that don't matter. It's like building the pyramids. As a kid, I always hated the pyramids. When I learned that slaves had to build those things for one man's vanity, the pharaoh, I was disgusted with the pyramids. I thought, man, if I'm ever dictator of the world, I'm going to blow the pyramids up. Screw it. Because the pyramids are a symbol to me of vanity and slavery. That's what they represent. So I'm amazed they're still around. I would have blown them up. Anyway. So I am personally irritated when I see this stuff. But here's the thing. My personal feelings aside, I can just tell you what Jesus taught about the wealthy. And I've done that many times in the recordings I've made. Now, what's awkward is when I come into a situation where I am interacting with people. Say, okay, so for example, just recently, my dog was needing to have chemotherapy. And we got it set up for next Monday. And I don't have all the funds for this. And so I set up a GoFundMe. Someone anonymously donated most of it. And it's awkward now, because if that somebody was a relative of mine who has, they're not, nobody in my family is rich. Rich means like you're a billionaire. But millionaire, yeah, there are some people in my family who are at that level. So they're not rich. They're just kind of, they're middle class. Millionaire, middle class. Billionaire, upper class. Thousandaire, lower class. And if you're a trillionaire, you are a Rothschild. You run the world. But anyway, so the people in my family, my life, they're not rich. They're middle class. And so I want to make that clear. But at the same time, they are at a point where they do have resources that they really don't need. And so when I preach what Jesus preached, Jesus basically preached to take what you need to live and give the rest away to those who need it more. He told the wealthy to give their wealth away to the poor and then come follow him. That's what he told them to do. And that's what I preach, because that's what he preached, and I know that it's the right thing. I can't take credit for it, first of all, because he's the one who taught that. And also, I'm not responsible for it, so don't hate me for it. Take it up with the big man, okay? But here's the awkward situation. When somebody was nice enough to donate money for my dog's cancer, but they still have like lots of money and they don't care about anyone but themselves. Now I feel like I've almost been bribed. See the problem? This is why I think there's a huge conflict of interest for people donating money to pastors. I felt the first taste of it. Now I know why pastors don't want to speak badly about the wealthy like Jesus did. Now I know why they don't teach like Jesus did about money and giving away your wealth. I know why now. Because people with money were nice to them. And you just feel like, I can't talk bad about somebody who was just nice to me financially. First of all, I need to tell you this. the amount they probably gave you was peanuts to them. So it's actually not actually that big of a thing to them. In most cases, it was probably peanuts to them. So there's that. So get over it. It's not as big. It was a lot to you. There's a little lizard right there. It was a lot to you, but it was not a lot to them. It's a little orange lizard. I'm gonna see if I can get it on camera here. I'll zoom in. Yeah, there he is. But it's taking a bribe. It's taking a bribe, and so I learned another important lesson about all this, which is if people donate to not change the message, to not neglect the parts of the message. Pastors do this everywhere. I get it now. It's not only just because they've become wealthy, which is usually what happens over time, early on. It's like the devil is paying them to be quiet about what Jesus taught. Jesus taught, "Blessed are the poor, for yours is the kingdom of heaven, but woe to you who are rich. You have received your comfort now." He was not talking about spiritual wealth. He was talking about actual wealth, believe it or not. The simplest answer is usually true, because he's talking about comfort and discomfort, having the comforts of wealth, being well fed, all that stuff. He's talking about physical wealth. Evil, wealthy people will continually try to twist his message and say it meant something else. They're trying to have two masters. They're trying to have both God and money as their masters. They're trying to keep both of them in their world. And like Jesus said, how hard it is for a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of heaven. It's easier for a camel to shrink down to a tiny little needle than it is for a rich man to let go of his money, basically. And they just won't do it. They don't want to do it, and they will eventually betray God for money. I said many times, you cannot have both wealth and empathy, because if you had empathy, you would be aware of the difficulties of the people around you in your life, and there would go your wealth. So you can either have wealth or you can have empathy, but you can't have both. If you ever see a wealthy person, what you're also looking at is a person with no empathy. There's not a single wealthy person on this planet. I know people can say, Keanu Reeves, leave it. Okay, just leave it. But even still, no. Actually, I want to take the most precious, deified Keanu Reeves. Let me put it this way. Jesus said to give your wealth away to the poor and come and follow him, as long as he still has wealth that he's holding on to. Meaning one person could give away maybe 50% of their wealth, like Keanu Reeves. Another person only gives away 10% of their wealth for tax purposes. Jesus said give away all of your wealth to the poor and then come and follow him. So look, Keanu Reeves does seem like a nice guy. He probably is one of the better people in all of Hollywood. And I'm not trying to say anything to offend. I'm just holding a life up to the standard that Jesus taught. Give your wealth away to the poor and then come and follow him. Notice how it comes before the following part. is you have to do it first before you can follow him. Not keep your money, follow him, and then you gradually give it away over time. No, you have to do that first. Wealth is money that you do not need. Wealth is money that you will never need. If you're living in a modest home and a modest car, and you just like have enough just to maybe live off of the next couple of years, this is fine. This is how you're going to live. I'm talking about once you've gotten to a point where the resources are so great, you do not need that. You will never need it. Not practically, no. That's when it starts to become wealth. Excess, when you don't need it. But yeah, anyway, back to the original topic. Pastors take bribes from nice people with money. That's how it happens. I began to feel it myself. My burning anger against the wealthy for withholding help for the poor was muffled for a number of days, because I was just like, wow, that was a really nice thing what they did. I had no money and they helped. And you know what? There's another part of me that's thinking, well, I shouldn't be... Look, congratulations, you actually did your job, is actually the approach I should be looking at it. Congratulations, you actually did your job. That's... Mm-hmm. Can you imagine that if you had like a military, like an army, and a commander gives orders, and on the one-off chance that one of the soldiers actually obeys it, he's like celebrating and rewarding the soldier for doing what he was supposed to do in the first place? Can you imagine how ridiculous that'd be? Yeah, that's what I mean when I say maybe I need to look at this differently. It's congratulations, you did what you should have been doing in the first place. So I guess I shouldn't stop my crusade against um, the indifferent, against hard-hearted, stiff-necked people who only care about themselves and hoard wealth for themselves. The crusade cannot stop. It must go on. Yep. So that was a lesson learned. Don't take bribes from the devil. If someone wants to give you money to help you out, that's it. But do not change the message. Okay? Jesus came here. He spoke what he spoke. Pass it on. Okay? And going back to what I was originally actually going to talk about, which is if you really care about a friend, you're going to tell him. You're going to be considerate and try to adapt how you say it to the person. But at the same time, if you know that Jesus literally said, "What you have not done for the least of these brothers of mine, you have not done for me," that is literally one of the cornerstones of how people will be held accountable in judgment, and you know you've got a friend who just ignores everyone around them, is completely indifferent to others, just living for themselves, and you don't advise them that if they keep living like that they're going to be under judgment. Sometimes maybe the most hateful thing to do is to say nothing to them, if you think about it. Yeah, they might not like you, but then at least you don't have to feel the burden or pressure of being their friend anymore and having to. But you warn them. And you know what? There have been times in my life where I've warned people about something that was obviously true to most people. I don't want to name names or situations, but it wasn't until years later that they realized, wow, that guy, he was trying to tell me something and I was too stubborn to look at and see. And then they realize now, yeah, you're right. They might come around years later. They may never come around. I don't know. They might not ever talk to you again. I mean, it happens. But I really think the most hateful thing to do would be to remain silent. And the more loving thing to do would be actually to advise them about how it works. How it works. Think about this. We live in an age where we're trying to figure out how the whole universe works. And the story of Jesus is that God came into the world as a man, that the Spirit of God, the personality, who God is, came into this world as a man named Jesus. That's why he's called the Son, God the Son. He literally told us how it's going to work. The measure you use will be used against you. What you've done to the least of these brothers of mine, you've done to me. He was given all the answers out. He was given advice. He told the wealthy, you need to let go of your wealth. You know, he was just given all the answers out for people's eternal benefit. It would be wrong to hide that knowledge. It would be wrong to not pass it on. I always wondered why so many times churches will teach out of Paul's letters, but they won't teach out of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They won't teach out of Jesus' message. I call it Pollyanity. Okay. When you know why? Because Paul's like good cop, bad cop. You know, Paul just seems to be nicer. He just seems to, and there are a lot of people who have money are tempted to think they can keep their money under Paul's message. Just believe this and then you're good. Even the demons believe that Jesus was the Son of God. That doesn't mean, and admit that he is. That doesn't mean they're going to heaven. Believing something is nothing, but to have a change of heart, to accept God, Jesus as your Lord, that's different. That's submitting to God. That's a very different thing.